Name and occupation for the jury, please.
William Vandenbroek. I'm a sergeant in the Internal Affairs Division of the District of Columbia Police Department. You working late?
I can if you are.
Hi, I'm at the airport. It's the first time I sent a catalog to Miami without me, and the whole thing's falling apart.
The aircraft involved was a 737.
She went to Miami today. I need to find out what plane she was on.
If Peyton's traveling, I don't think it's for the store.
Are you saying she lied to me?
I'm saying I don't know where she is.
We got a guy who thinks his wife was on 437 traveling with another man.
3A and B, Mr. and Mrs. Cullen Chandler. Are you ready for this? Mrs. Chandler is a congresswoman.
K. Spencer Chandler.
My name's Bill Vandenbroek.
What is this about?
My wife was on that plane that your husband was on.
The premise of this thing was always interesting. It obviously was interesting to Harrison, too.
When he told me the story, when he recounted the circumstances that begin the film, where each of the two main characters loses their spouse in a commercial airline crash, and then they learn that his wife was having an affair, it sent a shiver up my spine.
It's difficult not to get swept up in this story because it's so terribly emotional. It's probably the most emotional thing I've ever had to do.
I related very strongly and emotionally to the character's dilemma, to the questions that were being asked.
I think it's a Harrison Ford nobody's ever seen before. It's also the Harrison Ford that makes us comfortable and that we have seen before. There are parts of this picture when he's the cop, when he's, you know, when he's losing his temper. But the film asks him to go places he hasn't been asked to go in other movies.
We are rolling. Speed. Action.
He's a complicated character. He's an internal affairs investigator, which means he should know what's going on around him. He should be aware of the fact that his wife is lying to him. What mechanism prevented him from understanding what was going on around him?
He led a happy life with this woman and had no sense that she was betraying him. His pride as a cop is hurt badly by that. And so he goes after this the way he'd go after a criminal.
They meet in a very, very strange, very, very strange way.
Are you investigating something?
They were sitting together on the plane. Your husband, my wife. Do you know that?
No.
3A and B, first class.
Is there anything else?
What are you, Mrs. Chandler, sophisticated? I think Dutch is the kind of guy that needs to have the answers, needs to have closure. But he has no place to turn to get the answers he needs, except to Kay.
Action, Harrison.
And so he follows her, and he continues to work on her to try and entice her into the investigation.
Let's get something straight. I will not allow you to...
I don't have any choice. I need your help.
She's never met anybody like him. This man is obviously very honest and brutally honest.
I try and go back in my head. What's the last thing you remember about you and your husband that you know is true? I gotta find out how far back I have to go to do that.
When is the memory a memory you can trust? How far back do you have to go in time before everything is a lie?
Dutch's obsession is that he needs to go sort back through his recent history and find out when it started, know how they met. This is where they were gonna stay. These are the needs of a policeman trying to make sense of something. You don't want to know how it started? You don't want to know how long it was going on? You don't want to know what their plans were? You don't want to know anything.
What she thought about when she thought about me. I'd like to know that.
But you might like to know what she looked like.
You leave me alone. I mean it.
She's not as sure as fast as Dutch is that there was a betrayal, but deep down in her gut, she senses it and she pushes it away, tries to get on with her life, tries to protect her daughter, who adores her father, tries to protect her campaign, which she's in the middle of, from the scandal that she knows would ensue if this came out.
Look, if they find out about your wife, it's gossip. If they find out about my husband, it's in the newspapers.
Action.
She's aware of having to keep control of her life and not let anything morally suspect enter her kind of space.
Kay, a detective came by the office today asking about Cullen. I wasn't there. Barry said he asked how much Cullen traveled. Seemed to be particularly interested in Miami. Asked who our Miami clients were. Said he was going there tomorrow.
So the only thing he knows to do is to go down there, talk to the people she was going to work with, go to the hotel they were going to stay, see if there were reservations made for a dinner, a show. So he goes through that. He puts himself through that evening.
Dutch's reaction is a different expression of grief. I think that you feel his pain and his grief, but it's complicated by his feelings about having been fooled.
He admits freely that his wife had an affair. She's terrified that because of that attitude, he can invade her life and turn this into a real scandal. So out of her fury, she goes after him to try to shut him up, to try to call him off.
You can't rummage through my life. Who's next on your list? My neighbors? My staff? My friends?
Then talk to me.
So you can paw through my marriage? Make me confess to something? It's my life. It's mine to judge, not yours.
You're not the only one involved.
They're both emotionally very raw and open. And in that context, in those kinds of circumstances, they become friends.
You know what I do for a living?
I get paid to notice stuff. I get paid to know who's lying.
I didn't have a clue.
Missed it.
It's sort of chilling to me that these two survivors actually take the trip that the lovers had planned on but did not take. And they go to a tango palace where the lovers had made reservations. Neither of them really knew about this passion for the tango. They each imagine their respective spouses standing there watching what they're watching. Very sort of overtly passionate and sensual dance.
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here.
It's a sort of excruciating experience for both of them. They're primed for something to happen because they're both so hurt. There's a sexuality that's on their mind all the way through it. And it sort of erupts. There's a lot of rage that turns into passion.
Why? Dave, why? Why? Because they did? Because they were going to...
Stop it! Easy! Stop it now!
There's an artificial closeness that comes from sharing a tragedy. And sharing a tragedy that's predicated on betrayal, absolute betrayal. I was obsessed by the obsession of Harrison's and sort of obsessed by wanting these two good people to get better and to find some sort of happiness together, help each other heal in a way.
To make a love story out of this dreadful betrayal and mourning is really quite extraordinary. The way Sidney has done it, to really balance these two, to see it from both views, to see it from the man's view and the woman's view, and the result is that men and women have a completely different reading of it.